Evening, everybody. Welcome to the Rip Roaring Reds podcast. I'm your host, Jace, and with me today, as always, is my co-host, Grev. How you doing, Grev?
Yeah, I am good on this lovely Sunday evening. Thanks very much, Chase. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. You've been up to much today?
I had 12 screaming 7-year-olds at my house for my youngest's birthday, and I never want to go through that hell ever again. It was I'm now emptying my hot tub because it is effectively half filled with grass. So that was fun. But yeah, it was all right. What about you? What did you get up to?
That does sound fun. Well, I had the luxury, if you will, of not having children. So it was quite a peaceful one. Watched the Grand Prix. This is not an F1 podcast, so I won't go into it. But I'm a big F1 fan as well as a big Arsenal fan. So yeah, happy to see Lando Norris on the podium. That was me too.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a little bit jealous of the fact that you don't have any children right now, but it is what it is.
Flexibility can podcast anyone. Right, let's get into the intro music and then we'll get on with it.
Saka. Saka! That is a diamond of a goal! It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent!
This is my club. Fucking love this football club.
Henri. What a goal! Gabriel Martinez! He's scoring for Arsenal!
Right. So, as always, we'll kick off with our rip roaring review. It's coming off the back of a slightly disappointing result against Man United on Saturday night. So, Grev, what is your rip roaring review? To do with the game, or is it something else?
It's kind of this again, and this is I was never looking forward to our first pod with a loss because they're always going to be a bit somber and a bit different, I think, to other pods that we do. But the way I want to take this review is that Arsenal are back. You know, the web chat and the Twitter and the text messages, they're all catastrophizing everything that Arsenal are doing, and I think that is Arsenal, right? You know, if you've been a fan of Arsenal, you're used to this. It's like everyone's seen the meme of Arsenal going to Arsenal. There's like a guy in a backpack with a guy behind him with a stick, and they're both Arsenal. We're just both like, we catastrophize like everything to do with our club when it's not going right. And this was a perfect example. We had two defensive mistakes that led to goals that we're going to talk about in the first kind of section. And I not that I enjoy it, but it's part and parcel of being an Arsenal fan. I think is enjoying the times when everything's blowing up in and around you, and you can kind of have to take the banter on the WhatsApp group messages. I'll be honest with you, right? So before the game, Man United tweeted out a little picture of Ten Hag's quote, "We don't do friendlies. This is not a friendly." So I screenshotted that, ready to use when Arsenal were about to thump Man United.
Oh
Actively
no.
deleted that picture as soon as I saved it, pretty much. So yeah, that is my review. What about yours, Jason?
Mine straight into some detail. I have controversial. I think we should sell Tommy Yasu, and I think we might want to consider keeping someone like Kieran Tierney. Um, Straight into the detail. I'm not going to go into defensive woes, but what I will say is about what I saw. Tommy Yasu, he's not able to use his left foot if we play him left back, and I feel like he's going to get more games left back than he is right back because of Timber, because of White. Um, this is a challenge, right? If we're thinking about playing him there, he needs to be better than his performance against United. I'm not going to catastrophize too much, but you could see the difference when you brought Kieran Tierney on, right? He is a left back. He is an old school left back, and he brings something different. He doesn't necessarily fit always into the way that we want to play, but if we do need to be more direct, Kieran Tierney is a better option at left back if we're not playing with the inverted left back, for example, like Zinni, or we're not even putting Kivior in there. Tommy did not have a great game. He's always getting injured as well. He's been pretty inconsistent in the last season. So yeah, there was a few times he wasn't tracking runs. He was struggling in some circumstances when he was trying to move the ball about because he has to use his right foot and he's on the wrong side of the pitch for that. So yeah, I went straight into it. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say going forward, he did offer. There was one of the bits where I think he had Anthony or another player on toast, and he was doing not too bad, and he was kind of doing tricks and spinning inside. But like you say, that's the only option that he's got. It's coming inside because he's naturally going to do that with his right foot. And it seems strange when you've got Tierney, a natural left back on the bench, and you're not using him. I think for Tierney, that would be a nail in the coffin for me. If this game isn't important, I realise, but like as a left back, you're kind of thinking, look, there's a person not in his natural position playing in mine. So what does that say about me? And I think you're right. Maybe I don't think there's, I suspect he's probably on a 4-year deal and he's probably doing 2 years in. So you're probably not looking yet if you were going to move him on. But I would say the likelihood is that one of those Timber or White is probably going to come into that centre backfill rather than 3 right backs. But, we've got a lot of options at that space now.
Yeah. I think because for me, if you're going to use Tommy, like he's playing, is it left centre back? He plays for left-sided centre back, but he plays for Japan. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if we're going to play him anywhere in pre-season, maybe I'd like to see him there because we'll go on to defensive woes in a minute, but we might need some backfill there at some point. But if I just based on I'm always conscious. That's quite Rip Roaring Review. It's meant to be kicking off with something a little controversial, right? So it does feel like, just sell him. I'm not saying like just sell him, but I'm definitely saying we need to consider our defensive options if we are consistently seeing some themes in our defense. And one of those might be that Tomiyasu, his place on the right side is questionable because of the depth that we've built there. So then where else are we going to play him? And I think Tierney is a better quality left back.
Yeah, and the fact that he doesn't also naturally fit in that inverted role that Arteta has obviously been breeding in a lot of other left and right backs that he has would kind of, but usually, I mean, I don't know for sure, but he seems to have one that's kind of natural, plays that role, as you say, like a Tierney style, and then a Zinni, and then on the other side, you got White who does that, and then Timber. So it feels like it's a bit of a loss, maybe. Yeah.
And again, high quality defender, money sitting on the table, we need to bring money in.
Yep.
And surely if Tierney was going Newcastle or Celtic, I mean, there's talk about him wanting to go back to Celtic. But I mean, Celtic can't afford him. So if he's not going to Newcastle, he's probably not going anywhere, right? Maybe Villa, maybe
they've been doing some great business this summer, by the way, Villa. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, and you can see a reunion with Emery quite easily there. But it depends on what Tierney wants as well. So we'll see, I guess. But I think that moves us naturally into our first subject, which is defensive woes. So, Grev, where do you want to start on this one?
I mean, where to start? Two kind of mistakes that probably led to goals, particularly the Gabriel one that was kind of just a fluff of his lines. And I think we discussed previously that Gabriel has it in his locker. And he can be quite inconsistent when it comes to defender. I actually think that Gabriel is actually a top class defender. I think he's probably not as self-assured as Saliba. And he does remind us a lot of like the 2016, 2017 defenders that we kind of had, where you naturally just assumed you were going to get one mistake a game. And you would just, exactly. And you're just hoping that it doesn't cost you. And I think that's the problem. They always end up costing us. We don't seem to get like a get out of jail free card. A lot of times. So for me, he was at fault obviously for that goal, but generally throughout the game, like his defensive headers from corners and free kicks were brilliant as always. I think that there's not a lot getting past him in terms of balls into the box. It's just generally speaking that there's always that one kind of issue that's going to happen, and unfortunately it happened where we let in a goal. And I'm glad it wasn't Anthony, put it that way. I think it would have been significantly worse if it was Anthony. Sancho put it like a fantastic finish.
It was a great shot. Yeah, I was about to
Yeah,
say,
and
roof of the net.
yeah, exactly. So you can't really argue with that. As for, I mean, I was interested from you. What do you think about Gabriel? Whether you do you see him the same as me, or is it something a bit different?
Definitely. Well, the first thing, I think we were kind of talking about this, chatting as we were making notes. I started watching the game. I think you said this in the last podcast. He always has a mistake in him, and he's been consistent now 2 games on the trot with this mistake in pre-season. Last pod, I said it was rust. I don't give out excuses twice. He's just made a mistake. And the problem is that I am seeing that a little too often. Everything else, do I agree? I agree, solid. But I want. You can't have the same 2 defenders at centre back, right? You can't have the same 2 styles playing centre back. So saying you want a Saliba style centre back on the left isn't going to work. I think you can only have one person playing that style at the back, and then you need a different type of defender. And so I think that they complement each other really, really well. I just want to see more consistency from Gabriel, and he's got to get those errors out. Else we're going to have to put Kivior in and give him a go. Put Tomiyasu in, give him a go. At least in pre-season, because we need to see what else works there. We've relied so heavily on that partnership last season, but at the same time, we relied on that partnership, but we had the occasional mistake. That occasional mistake, if that drops us points, we ain't winning the league. It's as simple as that. So, as much as we've probably got an emotional attachment to Gabriel, I think there's a lot of fans saying, and I agree, that he is underrated as a centre-back. And I think he is. Like, when we looked at that ESPN top 10 centre-backs, Saliba is in there at number 4, and Gabriel wasn't even in the top 10. And I was like, after the season we had, I felt Gabriel should have been in the top 10. He wasn't. I think, Brazil, again, didn't really consider him as part of the World Cup squad.
You think maybe that there's something that other people are seeing that we're maybe not? Maybe we're blind to it being Arsenal fans, that other critics, journalists, etc. can see that we can't because we're too close to it.
Yeah, maybe. Like, I think there's something there that there's something, maybe, I don't know if it's something we're not seeing, but there's definitely a perspective on Gabriel that others have that Arsenal don't, and I think that's what is not getting him the respect he deserves. But the problem is, our argument to say no, you should be giving him more respect, doesn't get helped when he continues to make those mistakes. And we need him to be better, because we can't have 2 Salibas at the back. We can't, even if we were to bring in another player plays more like Saliba on the left side, I don't think that works. I think you have to have 2 different styles, like Koscielny and Mertesacker. Like, they were actually really decent together. Okay, we weren't the best team at that time.
They had a phase where I'm sure they had like 16 games unbeaten or something, and they were rock solid.
Yeah, there was something that complemented them. Per was reminded me a lot of Saliba in a way, in regards of composure of the game.
Not speed.
Not speed, no. But Koscielny had the speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Koscielny was the one that was.
He was the ball carrier. He would kind of take it forward, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and those for me really complemented each other, and I think both Saliba and Gabriel do, but yeah, we just need him to ride that out of his game. If not, we need to make some changes. We need to be more. I want to see a little bit more. I'm all for nurture, but if we're going to be serious, we also have to be more clinical. And as you said last pod, make decisions earlier. If we're not doing it, we need to make decisions earlier.
I mean, now's the time to do it, though, right? I know that you said I'm not giving out the same excuse twice, and that's fair enough, right? But we are in the second game of preseason. We've got another
But
3 to go left.
we played
Barcelona,
3 games.
Monaco.
Barcelona, Monaco, City.
Okay, so 2 and then the Community Shield. So there's, this is why I'm not overly fussed, and we're going to talk about the friendly nature of this game later on. But I'm glad these mistakes are now. They're not against Forest. They're not against Fulham. They're not against Palace in those first kind of 3 games of the season, which is great. I would just say, and we haven't discussed it yet, but Ramsdale needed to do better. I do think he could have done better with Sancho's as well. But Sancho's was a really good hit, and it was right in the roof. Yes, it was near post. That one's going in either way. I do think the long Bruno shot, despite the fact that he had a lot of time, he's got to get down earlier. This is a long way out.
It was a weak part. I mean,
yeah.
I won't say what my brother-in-law calls it because it's a bit of an awkward thing, but he needs a stronger palm to palm that away.
Yeah.
He's very. It's just.
He's just not. I don't know. Like, obviously, with his feet, he's excellent. His ball distribution, his insight into where the ball should flow through the game is great. He's just not a good shot stopper, and those two in combination need to work really well. He is not a top 5 keeper in the world, and ideally that's what we need. So time will tell whether or not he's the right man for the job, or whether or not we could find. I mean, there's a lot of keeper movement in the market at the moment. Onana's obviously gone to United. They had Tom Heaton, and he was doing a lot of the. I mean, he had a relatively quiet game. We didn't really do anything, but during the penalties, if you saw them, he was doing the old shenanigans, giving it a load of stick, fluffing up the grass, walking out, having a bit of word in their ear. That kind of nastiness is something that you need sometimes. He's 37, right? He is a student of the game. Ramsdale maybe needs to take a leaf.
He was just reveling in it because he doesn't get many games. That's all.
Yeah. Put himself in that shop window, I suppose.
But yeah, I think Ramsdale just had a bad game. I think there's a second point right to this, which is I don't think we looked great defensively, and I think that lack of composure at the back made it harder for Ramsdale to play out with his feet. There was twice he kicked it out of play. Like, he tried to kick it up the field and went out of play, tries to throw to United.
Yep.
So I think that the poor defensive play and the bit of lack of composure, their press on us, we weren't ready for it. We were not prepared for that. We were not expecting that kind of game from them. I was going to say maybe I'll have to let it off right now as a preseason friendly and just let it go. But and I think Arteta, I didn't see his press conferences at the end, but I saw a quote which basically was like, "Yeah, that's not happening again." So I'm gonna let it go for now. I'm just hoping we don't see a performance like that again in preseason.
I tell you what, since you've kind of led on to it, I'm going to reorder some of our discussion points just because I think it's worth discussing now. Learning from our mistakes is something that maybe you just said. Arteta there has kind of said, for us, we're not going to do that again. What I can't believe from this game in particular is this is a carbon copy of the 2 occasions we played them last season. That ball over the top, that very direct play, their high press, their low block when they were ahead. They are all details remnant of the games that we played for them. And for me, it just feels odd that Arteta can say that's not going to happen again, but yet wasn't ready for that game plan from Ten Hag. Like, I think it was clear as day that they did it against us and it worked.
Well,
I'm only going to say they obviously went a goal up last. I can't remember if it was both times. I think Rashford did the first time around. I can't remember off the second one. But they went ahead and we had to claw it back. We had to do that a lot last season and we couldn't do it this time around. But it just feels mad to me to set up in such a way, knowing that they were going to play like that and not being ready for it.
I think we have a problem with playing a certain style of game. United were one team that did it. Newcastle were another. not the away game. We managed to overcome, but the home game, two elements. They were direct of Callum Wilson over the top to Callum Wilson, and they had a low block, and we couldn't play with
and
those.
they time wasted a lot.
Yeah, they time wasted a hell of a lot, but we can't play with. We can't play that game. And I thought maybe with the Newcastle game away last year, maybe like we were starting to have a style of play that mitigated that. But I think the preseason game has opened up the can of worms again. I don't know if we should be catastrophizing, as you say, like Arsenal going to be Arsenal, but with fans catastrophizing. But I want, again, it comes back to when the season starts, every point is to play for. If we want to win the league title, we can't have slopes like that. We're going to have to figure out how to play against teams that are going to be direct and knock it over the top. Because the press wasn't aggressive enough from us, which allowed them to knock it over us. So then, we were trying to press, but not pressing aggressive enough. We left space. They countered. There was quite a few times when then, we were vulnerable. And I think the first chance that Anthony missed, we were really lucky. We were lucky that Anthony is Anthony, not the best investment in £100 million. But yeah, I don't have an answer for it apart from I need to see us learn from our mistakes, and I don't really know what Arteta can do. Well, we need to talk about the midfield, and I think we will. So maybe we'll cover it in that.
I would say,
I think the midfield needs sorting out.
Yeah, it does. But you said we're not learning from our mistakes. I think there is that part to it, which is why I called upon it. But also, I feel that we just don't have a plan B. We always play, and we kind of feel a little bit like Leeds when they came up. And I think it was Bielsa, right? And everyone always talked about that they just played that style, and they would never change the way in which they played, no matter the opposition that they were playing against. And that feels very much akin to like us. Like you talked about the Newcastle game, they set up maybe 3 or 4 different ways last season where they set up against different opposition, and they really stifled us, particularly with that time wasting and those very direct balls to Callum Wilson. And then they played quite free flowing Arteta, a Wenger ball football against some teams. It was good to see, and that's why a lot of people loved Newcastle last season for what they bought. And for us, it feels like you say, as soon as the team set up that low block, we kind of look around at each other and kind of go, "Oh, I don't know what to do now." We're all kind of maybe looking at Ødegaard, wondering when he's going to have the key to unlock that door, and it hasn't worked. And you mentioned it as well. Like we didn't press in numbers like we have previously. There were occasions during that game in particular where Martin was on his own, isolated in that press. I mean, you've played football enough times where you maybe press on your own, you look behind you and you're like wondering where the rest of the players are coming in, and then they bypassed, 3 players and are through on goal. So that seemed to be quite a regular occurrence during that game against United.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, yes, I don't know if we have to think about then what our forward options need to be, because we seem to only play one way, and if there's a low block, we get as you say, that we don't have a key to unlock the door, which means that our game is fundamentally it feels a little bit flawed in that situation. Now, I'd imagine if you had like a Giroud in that situation, someone that because he's a striker you have for direct play, right? You knock it forward to Giroud, he brings it down, he knocks it down to the forwards that are running past him. He does it with France, with Griezmann. He's done it at Chelsea with Hazard. He made a brilliant relationship. He used to do it with Theo. Like that, I'm not saying that we need to pivot completely away from our style back to the way we used to play. But we need something different if we need to change something. And I don't feel that we have that style or a different style of attackers on our bench to change a game in such manner. We'll replace like a Martinelli from a Trossard and then still try and pick pockets of space.
It's very like for like, isn't it? Really, a lot of our kind of substitutions.
Yeah, Jesus for Eddie. It's like they're still fairly quick, pacey, pressing kind of style strikers, but not tall and necessarily physically strong to go one-on-one with a centre back winning a header. And that's a challenge, right? Because it just means that we can only play one way.
Yep.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I think it's a subject that you want to talk a lot about. It is those midfield combinations. We did likely start with what everyone expected to be that kind of midfield trio of Rice, Havertz, and Ødegaard. But I think a lot of people are already, we've used that word a few times, but the 100 million you said about Anthony, for example, what we don't want to start seeing is the Twitter sphere blowing up that the Rice 100 million was maybe too much, but maybe it's too early to tell. What do you think about the kind of midfield combinations, Jace? Where do you think? I think that you would like to go down the Havertz route first, right?
Yeah. So let's start with Havertz. He's still getting to learn to play with us, and I think we need to understand. We as fans need to understand what Arteta's trying to do with Havertz, because I don't think we know. And so I'm in that position where because we're all judging him on Xhaka. That's what we're doing. I think we're all judging him on the performances from last season that we saw from Granit Xhaka. And what Granit Xhaka can do is he can play that left 8 role and protect the defence. And what I think Arteta, I don't know what Arteta is expecting from Havertz. Is he expecting like for like? Because if he's expecting like for like, Havertz has got to change his game. It's not what he's used to. Especially as he was playing as a centre forward a lot for Chelsea. This is box to box midfielder now. It's a very different game. So I think that's something. First of all, we need to understand what does Arteta want from him, and then what does that mean for how we play? Because what I was seeing was, if I try and describe this for people listening to the podcast rather than watching on YouTube, but I saw Havertz as the most furthest attacking midfielder, and then I saw Ødegaard kind of starting to drop back, especially when United were attacking, and Havertz was still up the top of the field. And I was like, well, hang on, if that was Xhaka in that role, Xhaka would be sprinting back, absolutely sprinting back to try and make a transitional foul and get a yellow or do whatever tactical thing that Arteta wanted him to do. So I'm like, I don't know if they're trying something different, but either way, Havertz on that left side is not giving the left back enough cover. Maybe that's why I wasn't so impressed with Tommy Yasu as well, especially because he didn't get that support on that side, right? Like there's a hole there. If you're playing with Cine, it's a different game because you've got someone filling that space, and it's maybe not so much a problem. But last night it felt exposed. I don't think Havertz had the best game, but I'm not going to go down there. He's not good enough. I think Arteta's got a plan for him. We just need to give it time to see what that plan is. However, the main concern really is he needs to figure out that plan and make sure he understands it before the season starts, because we can write off every game now till City. But if we don't turn up against City, I know City really is still a pre-season friendly, but the problem is it isn't a pre-season friendly. Not because everyone in England no one's watching our pre-season games in the build-up. No one's going to watch what we do against Monaco or what really we do against Barcelona. But everyone's going to watch how we play against City in the Community Shield. And if we play like we did last night, it's going to create an aura in the press. And it's going to start already. The press are going to started getting on at Arteta. The fan base is going to go negative. Everyone else is going to be taking the piss out of us. So especially after the money we've spent. So I think that it is in our own interest to figure out whatever we need to figure out before Man City. And if it's the case that we need to give Havertz time, then let's give him time. Just because we spent £65 million on him does not mean that he has to start in that position at the beginning of the season. If he needs to be on the bench, be an impact sub, he's a bloody good quality impact sub to have coming on. I'd rather play Rice there. And so I'll hand over to you now before I talk about what midfield preference I'd like to see. What's your views on Havertz?
Well, I think you probably alluded to it already. But yeah, so for me, I agree with pretty much everything you said. The problem is Arsenal fan bases, we just want instant gratification. And we've seen it not work after one game. And so we're very much of the theory that, it's not going to work. Like you believe there's a bit of education there. You could see he wasn't tracking runs. You could see if he was trying to emulate Xhaka, going forward, I think Havertz is a better player. I think he'll offer more going forward. And I think that's what we're going to get from this is like Xhaka was good defensively and he was good last season offensively as well, but he wasn't great offensively. And I think Havertz can do that. He just needs to be taught to do the other object of that game as well. The problem is, like you say, it is going to take time, and it's whether or not we're willing to kind of wait to make that happen. We started so well last season. Arsenal fans expect us to start as well this season as well. Like we can't be dropping points. So we've got a relatively good run at the start of the season. We've got some really good opposition just to kind of get in front of and hopefully get some points on the board. And so maybe there is an opportunity to kind of do it there. But like I said, I'd rather figure out if it's going to work now in the 5 preseason games that we would have had before we kind of go to that Forest game and then see it not work there. I'm like you say, the City game is one that will. I think Arsenal do have a mental block when it comes to Man City. We didn't beat them both times last season, no matter how hard we tried. I think it must have been the season before where we had an electric half against them and we still ended up losing. I think you were there for that game, right?
I was there. I was at that game. That game, we all left the ground very angry because the ref screwed us over.
I mean, you can make of it what you will, but effectively, we just seem to have this we just can't get past it no matter how hard we try. It's something that is just written before we even walk out of the tunnel that we just know we're gonna lose, and no matter what we do and strive to do during that game, we can't get over it, which is a shame, and I'm hoping that'll change. But for me, so yeah, I'd give Havertz a bit more time. I would say that generally, though, from that game against United, we just lacked creativity, top to bottom. We couldn't string real good forward passes together. I've not checked the stats, but I'd imagine they're not painting a very rosy picture for us. We didn't have any real chances, honestly. We had, I think Eddie had maybe 2, where one was just kind of quite wide, to be honest, but it looked good on paper. And maybe a couple more, but it's quite reminiscent of a lot of our bad games under Arteta in reality, where we might have 1 or 2 shots on goal for 90 minutes, and that's really poor.
Well, we just rely on Saka to dig us out of holes. Saka, when there's a bit of good combination play that created Martinelli's chance, and Saka and Timber in the first half, I think it was in the first 10-15 minutes for United, got a foothold on the game, and I think one thing I made a note of was that I want to see us put teams to the sword earlier, start fast. And I haven't. That was a perfect game. Start fast, kill them with 1 or 2 goals, and that Martinelli 2 shots Heaton saved for Martinelli. Fair play to him. 37-year-old getting down like that quickly.
We'll see me doing it.
Yeah, because we could have been 1-0 up and it could have been a completely different game. But apart from that, I don't think there was many standout opportunities. Eddie in the second half, as you said. But yeah,
I would say Saka was probably our best player in that game. I think his once again was giving down that side quite a lot of nightmares, but can't do it on his own. And that the reading of he always reminds me a little bit of Schneider. Like he'll come inside and you can't stop it, kind of thing. It was always very much like he would, it's coming. Or was it Robin? I can't remember. What it always comes inside. Yeah,
Robin.
And you just can't stop it. It's coming, and he does it every time. And there was a couple of opportunities we had down the right hand side through Saka that could have ended up in a goal, which just didn't, which is a shame. And I really don't want to I think I'd be remiss to say that Man United were good. They played well. They had a game plan. They did the job on us. And, they won the game. So you can't really say very much other than that. We were poor. They were better than us and they deserved it. But I would say, like to you were alluding to who you want to see partner, because I'm assuming Havertz is not the one. So for you, where would you like that kind of midfield combination to end up?
Well, right now, if you're saying tomorrow season starts, you're saying you don't know our first 11. I'm pretty clear on what I want my first 11 to be now. But to specifically talk about the midfield, Partey yesterday justified the reason why I do not want to do Thomas Partey. Until we have someone who's playing better than Partey and keeping Partey out of the team, we cannot sell him, because he is our spine. He connects our attack to our defense. He takes the ball off defenders, and then he can move that ball really quickly through transitional play. And he has quick feet, and the ball sticks to his feet, and he just has that ability. I didn't see Rice do it yesterday, and then seeing as Partey came on, I felt that we were better with him. On the other hand, as I said, I'm not putting any pressure on Havertz. If he needs to sit on the bench and learn how we play and take time to transition into what Arteta wants him to do, that's fine. But in the moment, we all have Granit Xhaka in our heads, and I think Granit Xhaka, I think Rice can do the Granit Xhaka job. He's got an engine. He can go box to box. He's good in attack. You saw some of the goals he scored for West Ham last year. He had some beautiful goals for West Ham last year.
He plays for England as well when he plays as an 8, doesn't he?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I'm looking at this going like, I in the moment, I am not comfortable with having Havertz there at the start of the season. I'm not going to be criticizing him like I'm seeing a lot on Twitter. We need to give him time, but let's give him time. Let's not put any pressure on his shoulders. He doesn't have to start day one. I don't think we can, because we have a different agenda this season, which is hit it. So let him develop and come through naturally. And start your season with Partey, Rice, and Odegaard, because I think that's a more assured, confident midfield. I think Rice was also Rice hasn't built that relationship yet with the defence, right? So putting him straight in the 6 and having to collect the ball, but at the same time, the way Man United were playing, it was a hard game to just suddenly be introduced into having to slightly play the Arsenal way in the 6 role. So I think play with Partey for a while, learn how it's done if we're going to eventually move him there. But it just also backs up, I think, just talking about those 2 topics that we just discussed, it backs up the 2 points that we've been saying. We still need another midfielder. Regardless, I don't want to say anyone, but I think we need one more of high caliber that can come off the bench, because at the moment you're going to be bringing off the bench a Lokonga or an El Neni.
Jorginho?
I forget about Georgie. Yeah, fair enough, actually. Yeah, that's probably one high caliber replacement. But I'd still like to see one more. And then, again, who's the Saka? We can't rely on Saka all season, so we needed another creative spark, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so some Rice Party going on then, hopefully for Jace towards the start of our season. Where wanted to head next, and this was actually, it came through in a lot of different threads and a lot of different parts of our notes, was this really a friendly? There's a couple of ways you can take this. I'll let you start though, Jace, because I think you had some relatively strong feelings on where you thought Man United were taking this game. I'll let you rip into it.
Well, it wasn't a friendly. It wasn't a friendly. I'll let you talk about Martinez. But even at halftime, I'm seeing Ten Hag demonstrating with the ref and having to be pulled away. I'm like, dude, this is a pre-season friendly. Calm down. Who are you trying to prove? What are you trying to do? Everyone cares. You ain't getting points for this. You ain't winning a trophy. I mean, is it a psychological battle? Do you think is that what it is? Because I don't think Arsenal are looking at it like that. So and the statement he made before the game. So I was like, it wasn't a friendly. It was a friendly in our eyes. Clearly was because we would have turned up differently, I think. But it was not a friendly in their eyes, and I think he had probably done some pep talks before that game. So yeah, that I don't think it was a friendly.
I mean, there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. So yeah, firstly, the Martinez challenge is disgusting. Like I can't fathom, and you can see the ref just wasn't willing to really give out a lot of cards during this game because it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't matter. That type is just unprofessional in my eyes. This is a professional environment. It's not a professional game. It doesn't matter, and it feels like putting in that sort of challenge can end people's careers. I think it was dangerous. It was high, and it was just over exuberant. I think it was unnecessary. I would say though, to the fact that you said, yeah, it is a friendly. The way that I look at this is that shouldn't matter to us. We should play to win, no matter what the game is, and that's what they did. I texted this to a friend. I felt this was Man United's cup final. I think it does say a lot about Arsenal. The fact that teams now want to turn up and beat us says a lot about how we've grown over the past 3 years. We are a bigger beast than we were before, and people see us as a different threat than we were before, and thus people want to beat us, right? And people want to play against us in a certain way. And the fact that we just didn't turn up is a bit frustrating. The only thing I would argue against it is that as a friendly, the things you've really got to take away: movement of the legs and fitness, no injuries, and just familiarity with new players, right? Yeah, exactly. So if you get those three, there's not win or lose, yeah, but those three together, good, and that's what we got, right? We got familiarity with the players, we got a bit of fitness, and we got the opportunity and got no injuries, which I think is the main part. So it's not all bad.
Yeah, I think I have to ignore like social media and Twitter in the last 24 hours since the game, like because you just see just stuff coming through from Man United fans that winds me up. Like, oh, we've got a warrior, and it's like, no, you've got a psycho. Like, what's he doing? Like there's a level of I saw someone say, sorry, psycho is not really the wrong word, but there's a level of knowing when to be hard and when to be disciplined.
I think it's maturity. I don't think he has the right level of maturity.
Yeah, and for me, it was just I don't know. I was just like, you can be rough, you can be hard to play against, but it's a friendly. Like, calm down. Like,
well, you can see the reaction of the players. It all got a bit heated in that moment, and all the players knew it too. It's like, you're not giving 100% during that game, and nor should you be, because you're still bringing yourself up to full kind of fitness.
Was that first game?
I think it is that. Yeah, it is that. And I mean, Rice was on holiday like 5 days ago in Portugal with Bruno Fernandes. Like, it just seems mad to think that's the difference. And so Man United were fierce, they were sharp, they were hungry to beat us, and fair play to them, right? They played their game, they did it well.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just too much. And I do think that, like, I think that's a red. In a normal game, that's a red. I know obviously a friendly's different, but like in a normal game, I do think that he's gone.
Yeah.
I do. There was a handball as well that wasn't a handball, hit Casemiro straight in the face, which did make me chuckle a little bit.
That's.
I can't with one hand say it's awful to say Martinez and then think it's hilarious that Casemiro gets hit in the face. So I have to take it back. But it was not a friendly, as you say, and nor did I ever think it was going to be. If we were playing Man United, Man City, Chelsea in a friendly in a pre-season, it's going to be anything but.
Yeah, I know. I agree. Nothing more to add to that. I think move on from that game, I think.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's mainly like most of our talking points. So as most of our shows usually end on what is known as our parking lot. There's a few extracurricular things that happen either part of this game. Jace, where do you want to go first?
I will say one more thing about the game that it's not really part of the game, but the pitch was awful. I mean, if we're gonna, I mean, I appreciate it's an NFL ground, but the NFL finished like for the Giants and who's the other team it always plays?
Mets.
Mets, yeah. It finished a long time ago, so I don't understand why the grass was so bad if you knew that you were having two of the biggest football clubs in the world come and play. You could have prepared the turf a bit for it, in my opinion. I thought because that also I think had a bit of an influence on how we played the game, and I think that was clear to see. So yeah, that was a bit of that just annoyed me a little bit.
No, both teams obviously play on the pitch, though, right? But like you say, I think it was super sticky. Like it was just, they definitely wasn't the carpet. Put it that way.
Yeah, we'll put it this way: we needed a carpet. Man United were playing direct. The carpet weren't so important to them.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah, as a partial dry Giants fan, I was a little annoyed. Go on, you go next. I've got a few things to car park. So.
Yeah, I just to say, I'm sure, like you said, if you hadn't stayed away from social media, you might have seen a little bit of a fight in the stands between the, what looked like to be groups of Arsenal fans. And it did kind of call into light, rugby does it, American football does it, all fans just kind of group together in this like lovely, friendly family. Everyone sits next to each other, has a drink and enjoys the company. And obviously this was not the case. Whether or not it's Arsenal fans infighting because they didn't like Havertz in the left centre midfield, or whether or not it's something else entirely, who's to know? But it's just comical, embarrassing behaviour. And this is people like it's like schoolyard stuff. They're just standing around watching it and filming it. It is just absolute silliness, and I'm not here for it. That is such an awful part of like tribalism in football. That just doesn't. It feels like such an old adage that needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, it was unnecessary, right? These were people wearing, unfortunately, Arsenal shirts, fighting each other. There wasn't a United shirt in there because I know all the fans were all mixed up in the ground. But we don't know anything about the situation, so whether it was, are these people just turning up and wearing a shirt to the game, or they actually genuine Arsenal fans? And there's a lot of supporters clubs out in the US, so we don't know any of the reasons behind it, but you just don't want to see it, and I think really it just ruins it for the fans that are there that don't get to see Arsenal every day, right? Like, this is a chance. There's a lot of supporters groups in the US, and I know there's a number in New York and DC and along the East Coast. So, they've all travelled probably far to get to the game. They just want to watch the game to have that going on. And it was quite sprawled out, wasn't it? Like it started sprawling out a little bit. So, concerns of people's safety when, you just want to watch the game and then you're being impeded by that going on. So no one wants to see that. So yeah.
Agree. You mentioned to me, we've talked actually on both the first and second episodes of the podcast about the striker situation. The fact we sent out a tweet just before the game about the starting 11, and Balogun was our pick to go through as the 9, to see him in that role and to get him the opportunity to showcase what he can do, particularly in front of what will be his home nation. So a good stage for him to fight. He should be the poster boy of American soccer, should I say, not football. But didn't start. And did he come on? I can't even remember if he came on. I don't think he did.
No.
So what's going on there? What do you think is going to happen?
I think it's done, isn't it? Really? Like he's only had. It was like I think there was a tweet. He had like 25 minutes one game, 15 minutes another, something like that. Like it's not maybe more, but he's not played a full half in 3 games now, and one game he's not even made it on. So there was no reason the way we were playing yesterday why we couldn't have brought him on. So it tells me it's done. It tells me that probably there's negotiations going on with maybe Inter Milan or one of the clubs that are rumored to be interested in him, and maybe we're just safeguarding our investment and money on the table. That's what I'm taking away from that, because there was no reason not to play him. As you say, I want to see him play down the middle. I want to see him have a chance, but he's not being given the chance.
Yeah.
It tells me that probably the decision's been made, I guess.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't play a part in the next one, then yeah, it's a done deal. The most interesting thing to me out of the whole situation is that we know what we're getting with Eddie Nketiah. We know what to expect. We've seen him play plenty of games. We know exactly his style of football, the way he plays, the shots he takes. We don't know Balogun in this Arsenal system. And so this is the ripe opportunity for us to kind of look at what that looks like. And we didn't, which is just, I don't know, maybe Arteta sees enough in training that he doesn't need to, perhaps, but I'm not, as a stadium going fan, I haven't had that opportunity, and I'd like to kind of see it play out just to see where he kind of fits in. But we obviously looks like we're probably not going to get that opportunity. So yeah, eggs are in the Eddie Nketiah basket. But that's not to say if we don't get a good price, we can't reinvest as well. So let's see. Interesting.
Yeah, we need another attacker, creative, someone who can pull something out of the bag if Saka's not turning up. So I look forward to seeing Mbappe next week.
Yeah, maybe we could do a full pod on Mbappe. I'm sure that you'd have a lot to say, having watched quite a lot of his playing in Ligue 1. To end the podcast, so I did say that my WhatsApp has been blowing up since the podcast has started, with a lot of people giving us things to do, things to change, things to look at. One of the things that came out was a question. So listener Ben Hudson sent in a question to me he'd like us to answer. Do we think that Declan Rice will stay at Arsenal to the end of his playing career? I'll let you have a stab at it first, Jace.
That's a good question. Based on the contract he signed, he's going to stay most of his career, even if it's not to the end of his career. And I think it really depends on which. I don't have a direct answer. It depends on which way his Arsenal career goes. I think if he is the Xhaka replacement, the strong, dependable, always fit, and can fairly 8 out of 10 consistent player, then yeah, I think he probably will. If he's not quite that player, then he might not. He signed basically a 6-year contract. It's 5+1. That takes him to he's 30. So we're getting his prime years. So if it all goes well, he's going to be a captain-like figure potentially in the club. Then sure, I can see him staying beyond. I can see him having an extension. So yeah, I mean, and I think that's what we want, right? You want someone that's going to cement himself as a bit of a club legend, English player as well in centre mid. So yeah, I think that's what you want. So hopefully that's probably the answer, but not 100% sure. I think it's a bit too hard to answer after two half game appearances.
Yeah, it probably is. The only things that are swaying my decision. So I think he will. I think he'll stay until the end of his career. And there's two things that are kind of thinking that. Like you say, firstly is the contract. Takes him to his 30. The likelihood is we'll renegotiate that after 3 years and get another 2 on it, taking him to 32, which is basically where the ceiling is for most playable. They can go beyond that, but that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. The second is the price. He was a heavy priced player. We are very unlikely to get a resale value anywhere close to that unless he is absolutely electric and wins us the league and wins us the Champions League over the next 2 years. It's very rare. Arsenal are an awful selling club. We are terrible at selling players. We never get good money for anything that we put on the table, and thus we are not going to get 100 million plus for Declan Rice in any form of resale. And so that in itself, I think, is something as a business decision you would look at and kind of go, you're probably going to have to keep him. Either way you look at it. So I think he will. But yeah, a lot, maybe too early to tell, but I don't want to sit on the fence, Jess.
Well, I'm saying yes. I'll stay. But I think the only thing that would prevent him staying is the position he finally cements in midfield, depending on where it is. Because, someone like Modric, that's a style of midfielder you can probably keep for a very long time. But the other positions rely on, how many players who play in those kind of proper core central midfield positions, centre and defensive midfield positions, stay at their club to the end of their career and don't go down the leagues or back down to lower capability teams. And I think it's very rare that you see someone stay these days. Maybe in the old days, Steven Gerrard's probably one of the last ones. But no, he went to Galaxy as well, didn't he? So maybe he's not even one of the last ones.
Harry Kane.
Maybe. But I've got one more parking lot then, actually.
Go on. Well, I was only going to say that Ben reckons that he'll go to City, and likely, after 2 years or so, might go to City. But like I say, depends on how he plays, and it relies on Rice entirely, really, and the club in terms of the fee that we command in order to make him move on after that period of time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's fair. I'd like to see it, and if he does, that means he's done well, and we've probably won some trophies. So
yeah. Go on then, Jace. Where are you taking us? I'm excited now because I didn't know about this.
Tottenham inquiring for Mbappe.
No, it's not. Surely,
that's what I've seen. I don't know if it's real. It's a hell of a lot. Basically, there are a number of clubs in the Premier League who have inquired since he was officially put up for sale last night. So one of the Saudi Arabian clubs, apparently Chelsea, Spurs, and I think there's one or two other unnamed clubs in the UK. So in the Premier League, I've got to assume that we would be in the mix because I could see it, unless we're worried about his attitude. But I'm sure
I think we're worried about his salary. We're worried about his salary, Jace. Surely the salary is the thing that's turning everyone away.
Well, I can see. Yes, you're right. Put it this way, I just find the fact that I keep seeing rumours that Tottenham are going after him, I find just quite funny not because he would never go to Tottenham. Tottenham had evolved to the space where we are now. Then I think Tottenham's a legitimate option. But where Tottenham are right now in this moment, he's just going to be a Kane replacement, and I don't see him going there. In Tottenham's current position. The reason I said the other day I wouldn't like to have him because of his attitude now. Else I would have had him in a heartbeat because I've watched him since he was at Monaco and I've always wanted him. So if Arteta sorts his attitude out, I'd take him because we need that creative player. I think that there's a potential way in which financially we could probably monetize it. And what I mean by that is we're almost creating the Super League in the Premier League right then, because you've got the new, Messi and Ronaldo have retired, or they pretty much have retired. They're now playing in the retirement leagues. Sorry, that's a bit disrespectful to those leagues, but they're not the same caliber. And so you have
Haaland, Mbappe,
and everyone wants to watch Haaland versus Mbappe like they used to want to watch Messi versus Ronaldo. So I can see the appeal to get him to the Premier League, and it would be fitting for him to probably join us or maybe Liverpool if Liverpool come back this year. But I'd like to think that maybe what we're doing, the way we play, might suit him. So
Okay.
But
So it sounds like we're sending Jason Crew over to France to complete the deal for Mbappe, selling him on the idea of the English Premier League being the new Super League. Look forward to seeing how that plays out. Hopefully Jason is going to give him some of his salary, and we might have to all give him a bit of our salary if we're planning on trying to get Mbappe, because he is an expensive guy. But other than that, we've had a good podcast. Thank you very much, Jace, for joining me and not making it as bad as I thought it was going to be. And hopefully it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be either.
No, I've already got over my loss. It's fine.
Yeah, well, it was very cathartic at least, so I enjoyed that. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. I would say later on we'll put a tweet out with a hashtag if you would like to ask us any questions in a future pod, or if you do want to add anything into the YouTube comments, then please do it there, and we'll try our best to answer those questions in the parking lot in a future episode. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us, and hope you have an enjoyable evening.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.